The council chamber was the largest room Jake Morrison had ever seen. It stretched so far in every direction that the walls disappeared into shadows. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows that rose up like a giant bowl. Some had scales, others had fur, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. They all stared down at the small group of humans standing in the center. Jake stood straight in his navy blue uniform. Sweat rolled down his back, but he kept his face calm. Next to him, Ambassador Lisa Chen gripped her tablet so hard her knuckles turned white. The other human diplomats looked just as tense. They all knew what was coming. The speaker, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms, raised one hand. The chamber fell silent. Its voice echoed through the massive room when it spoke. The vote is complete. Resolution 4471 has passed. 287 in favor, 13 against. The human species is hereby declared a threat to galactic peace and stability. Jake felt his stomach drop. They had known this might happen, but hearing it made real was different. Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady despite everything. Honored Speaker, we request the right to appeal this decision. Humanity has followed every rule, every law. We have committed no crimes against any member species. The speaker's large eyes blinked slowly. Your species expands too quickly. You build weapons when we ask for restraint. Your history is written in blood and fire. In 100 of your years, you have spread to 40 star systems. The Krellian Empire took 1,000 years to reach that same number. You are too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous. A massive alien in the front row stood up. Its body was covered in thick armor plates, and its voice rumbled like thunder. Jake recognized it as Velthor, the military commander of the Krellian Imperium. The Krellians were the strongest military power in the known galaxy. The Krellian Imperium will enforce this quarantine, Velthor announced. All human colonies outside your home system must be evacuated within 6 of your months. A containment barrier will be placed around your sun. You will stay in your cage. If you refuse, we will force compliance. Jake wanted to argue, to shout, to make them understand. But Lisa touched his arm gently. She knew it was over. The galaxy had voted, and the strongest military in space would make sure humans obeyed. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot. The session was over. The humans walked out in silence. The corridor outside was empty. As soon as the door closed behind them, one of the younger diplomats, a man named Peter Cole, slammed his fist against the wall. They can't do this. We haven't done anything wrong. They don't care, Lisa said quietly. They're afraid of us. Afraid of what we might become. Jake looked at his team. We need to get back to Earth. President Harper needs to know immediately. The trip back took 3 days. Jake spent most of that time writing his report and thinking about what came next. He remembered his grandfather's stories about World War II, about what happened when people were pushed into corners with no way out. Desperate people did desperate things. When they arrived on Earth, a military shuttle took them straight to Washington. But instead of the White House, they went to a facility Jake had never seen before. The shuttle landed on what looked like an ordinary mountain, but then a massive door opened in the rock face. They flew inside and descended deep underground. President Daniel Harper met them in a conference room carved out of solid stone. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He looked like he had not slept in days. Next to him sat Admiral Greg Patterson, the commander of the United Earth Fleet. Across from them was General Amy Rodriguez, who controlled Earth's defense forces, and Kate Sullivan, the director of intelligence. Tell me everything, the president said. Jake and Lisa explained what happened at the council. When they finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then Kate Sullivan spoke up. We knew this was coming. Our intelligence network has been tracking Krellian fleet movements for weeks. They're already assembling a massive force. She tapped her tablet and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed star charts with hundreds of red dots. This is the Krellian war fleet. Over 300 ships, including their biggest dreadnoughts. They're gathering at a staging area in the Arcturus sector. 6 months, Admiral Patterson said. That's what Velthor said. But Kate's sources say they plan to move in 3. They want to catch us before we're ready to resist. President Harper leaned back in his chair. How many ships do we have? 47 combat vessels that are fully operational, the Admiral replied. Another 30 in various stages of construction. If we had a year, maybe we could match them. But 3 months? We don't stand a chance in a straight fight. Then we don't fight straight, said a new voice. Everyone turned. A door at the back of the room opened and a man in a white lab coat walked in. He was thin, with messy brown hair and glasses that kept sliding down his nose. He looked nervous but determined. "Mr. President, this is Dr. Henry Blake," Kate Sullivan said. "He runs Project Doorway, our classified research into advanced propulsion systems." The president nodded. "Dr. Blake, I've read your reports. You think you can help us?" Henry Blake moved to the holographic display. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted the controls. "For the past 3 years, my team has been working on something called slipspace technology. It's a way to fold space itself to move from one point to another almost instantly. We already have faster-than-light drives," General Rodriguez pointed out. "Yes, but those still take time. Hours, sometimes days, to cross between star systems. Slipspace is different. With it, we could jump directly from Earth to enemy territory in seconds. No warning. No chance to intercept us." Admiral Patterson leaned forward. "What's the catch?" "It's never been tested at full scale. The calculations are incredibly complex. One mistake and a ship could end up scattered across 1,000 light-years. Or it could implode, or create a black hole. We're not sure." "Wonderful," the president muttered. He rubbed his face with both hands. "What else?" "We've also developed something we're calling a rift weapon. If we can create a slipspace opening inside an enemy ship, the gravitational forces would tear it apart from the inside. It would be devastating, but again completely untested." The room fell silent again. Jake could see the president weighing impossible choices. Fight and probably lose. Surrender and spend the rest of human history locked in one star system, or take a desperate gamble on untested technology. "How long would you need to get this ready?" the president asked. 8 weeks for the first combat-ready systems. Maybe 10 to outfit multiple ships." President Harper stood up and walked to the holographic display. He stared at the red dots representing the Krellian fleet. When he spoke, his voice was hard as steel. "The galaxy thinks we're going to roll over and accept this. They think we'll evacuate our colonies and let them cage us like animals. They're wrong." He turned to face everyone in the room. "We're not going to wait for them to come to us. We're going to hit them first, hit them hard, and show them that humanity doesn't surrender." "Admiral Patterson, you'll coordinate with Dr. Blake. I want every available ship fitted with this new technology. General Rodriguez, prepare ground forces for combat operations. Kate, I need your intelligence network to find out everything about Krellian defenses." "And if this fails?" Lisa asked quietly. The president looked at her. "Then we go down fighting. But at least we go down on our feet, not on our knees." Jake felt something shift inside him. Fear was still there, but now it mixed with something else. Determination. Pride. The galaxy wanted to judge humanity, to lock them away. Instead, they were about to learn what happened when you cornered a predator. The meeting continued for hours, but Jake knew the real decision had already been made. Earth was going to war, and they were going to strike first. Captain Ryan Foster had been retired for exactly 14 months when the message came. He was sitting on his porch in Montana, drinking coffee and watching the sunrise over the mountains when his old military communicator buzzed. He had kept it in a drawer, planning to throw it away eventually. Now he was glad he had not. The message was short and direct. "Report to Fleet Command immediately. Presidential authorization. No exceptions." 3 hours later, Ryan stood in Admiral Patterson's office. The Admiral looked older than Ryan remembered, with new lines around his eyes and more gray in his hair. "Ryan, I need you back. I know you said you were done with military service, but this is different." "How different?" The Admiral told him everything. The vote, the quarantine, the coming war. When he finished, Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "You want me to command a ship against the Krellian Empire, an empire that has 300 warships to our 47. I want you to command our newest dreadnought and lead the first strike. You're the best tactical commander we have. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical." Ryan thought about his quiet life, his peaceful mornings. Then he thought about never being able to leave the solar system again, about his grandchildren growing up in a cage. He straightened his shoulders. "When do we leave?" The Admiral smiled grimly. 8 weeks. We're calling it Operation Defiance." The next morning, Ryan reported to the orbital shipyard above Earth. The ship waiting for him was massive, nearly a kilometer long. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plates and weapon ports. They called it the UES Retribution. His first officer was already aboard. Lieutenant Megan Price was young but sharp, with red hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. She had graduated top of her class in tactics and navigation. "Captain on deck," she called out as Ryan entered the bridge. "At ease, Lieutenant." "What's our status?" Still installing the new systems, sir. Dr. Blake's team is working around the clock. They say we'll be ready in 6 weeks. Ryan walked to the captain's chair but did not sit. He looked out through the main viewport at Earth below, a blue and white marble hanging in space. Somewhere down there, people were going about their normal lives. They did not know yet that war was coming. Over the next week, the rest of his crew arrived. His chief engineer was Commander Paul Jenkins, a stocky man with grease permanently under his fingernails and a gift for making machines do impossible things. The weapons officer was Lieutenant Carlos Diaz, who could calculate firing solutions faster than most computers. The medical officer was Dr. Susan Palmer, who had served in 3 combat zones and never lost her calm. The crew worked 12-hour shifts, sometimes longer. Dr. Blake and his team were constantly on board, installing the experimental slipspace drive and the Rift weapon. Ryan watched them work and tried not to think about how much could go wrong. One evening, he found Dr. Blake sitting alone in the engineering bay, staring at a display full of equations. The man looked exhausted. "Problem, Doctor?" Blake jumped, then relaxed when he saw it was Ryan. "Just running calculations for the 1,000th time. The slipspace drive should work. The math is solid, but there's always a chance I missed something. If you did, we'll deal with it. Right now, this is our best shot." Blake nodded slowly. "I have a family, Captain. A wife and 2 kids. If this fails, if the Krellians break through, they'll be down there when the bombardment starts." Ryan sat down next to him. "Then we make sure this doesn't fail." While the retribution was being prepared, other operations moved forward. Kate Sullivan's intelligence network spread false information across dozens of channels. They leaked documents showing humanity was preparing to evacuate colonies peacefully. They sent fake communications about surrender negotiations. All of it was designed to make the Krellians think humans were beaten before the fight even started. Meanwhile, the real preparations happened in secret. Shipyards in the asteroid belt worked nonstop, building new weapons and refitting old ships. Supply depots were established in hidden locations throughout the outer solar system. Transport ships began moving military equipment under the cover of civilian cargo runs. On Mars, General Rodriguez trained ground assault teams. Lieutenant Colonel Chris Murphy ran his special forces through brutal exercises in the Martian desert. They practiced boarding actions, demolition operations, and fighting in zero gravity. Murphy was a hard man who never smiled, but his soldiers would follow him anywhere. "We might not get to use ground forces," one of his lieutenants said during a break. Murphy looked at him coldly. "If Admiral Patterson's fleet fails, we will absolutely get to use ground forces. The Krellians will come to Earth and we'll make them pay for every meter of ground." Intelligence Director Kate Sullivan worked from a secure facility in Geneva. Her network of agents and informants spread across human space and beyond. Some had even managed to place themselves near Krellian facilities. The information they gathered was vital. One morning, she received a coded message that made her blood run cold. Agent Sam Torres, one of her best operatives, had infiltrated the Krellian staging area. His report was brief and terrifying. The enemy fleet was larger than expected. Over 320 ships now, and they were planning to move sooner than predicted. Not 3 months. Just 2 weeks. Kate immediately contacted President Harper. Within an hour, she was in the underground command center with the President, Admiral Patterson, and General Rodriguez. 2 weeks, the President said flatly. "Are we ready?" Admiral Patterson pulled up a tactical display. "We have 47 combat-ready ships. Another 12 that are 70% complete. If we push hard, we might get some of those operational. Dr. Blake says the slipspace systems are installed on 30 ships so far. That will have to be enough," the President said. "We're out of time. What's the target?" Kate highlighted a star system on the map. "The Vega system. It's where the Krellians are staging their fleet. It's far from Earth but critical to their logistics. They have supply depots, manufacturing facilities, and repair stations. If we hit it hard enough, we can cripple their ability to wage a sustained campaign." "How many Krellian ships are there now?" General Rodriguez asked. "Approximately 80 according to Sam's last report. The rest are still in transit." Admiral Patterson studied the display. 47 against 80. Bad odds, but not impossible if we have surprise. The slipspace drive means we can drop right on top of them before they know we're coming. President Harper looked at each of them in turn. "This is it then. Once we do this, there's no going back. We'll be at war with the most powerful military empire in the galaxy. We're already at war, Kate said quietly. They just don't know it yet. The president nodded slowly. Admiral, launch Operation Defiance. Hit them as hard as you can. Show them what humanity is made of. Over the next 10 days, the fleet prepared for departure. Families said goodbye to loved ones. Soldiers wrote letters they hoped would never need to be delivered. Engineers ran final checks on systems that had barely been tested. Ryan stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched the other ships form up around him. They were not the biggest fleet in the galaxy. They were not the most powerful. But they were humanity's answer to those who thought humans could be caged. Lieutenant Price reported that all ships were ready. Commander Jenkins confirmed the slipspace drive was online. Lieutenant Diaz had weapons charged and targeting systems calibrated. Admiral Patterson's face appeared on the main screen. He looked at Ryan and nodded once. All ships, this is Admiral Patterson. Today we show the galaxy that humanity will not go quietly into the dark. Today we strike first. Today we prove that freedom is worth any price. All ships, prepare for slipspace jump on my mark. Ryan sat in the captain's chair and gripped the armrests. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They were professionals, every one of them. They knew the risks. They chose to be here anyway. Mark, the Admiral said. The stars outside blurred and stretched. Reality twisted in ways that made Ryan's eyes hurt to watch. Then, with a feeling like falling and flying at the same time, the fleet jumped. When the stars stopped moving, they were no longer in the Sol system. They were at the edge of Vega, and the enemy fleet hung in space before them like a field of metal stars. Lieutenant Price's voice was steady. All ships have arrived safely, Captain. Enemy fleet detected. They have not seen us yet. Ryan leaned forward. Then let's make sure the first thing they see is our guns. All weapons, prepare to fire. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The Krellian fleet hung in orbit around Vega Prime like sleeping giants. 80 massive warships, their hulls reflecting the light of the blue-white star. They had no idea that 47 human ships had just appeared at the edge of the system. Ryan Foster watched the tactical display on his bridge. Every Krellian ship was highlighted in red. Most of them had their shields on low power, running in standby mode. They were not expecting trouble. That was about to change. All ships report ready, Captain, Lieutenant Price said. Her voice was calm, but Ryan could see her hands trembling slightly on her console. Admiral Patterson's orders came through on the secure channel. Strike groups Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. Execute attack pattern Valkyrie. Remember speed and violence. Hit them before they can organize a defense. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Ryan's group, Alpha, targeted the command ships in the center of the Krellian formation. Beta group, led by Captain Helen Martinez on the UES Defiant, would hit the supply depots on the planet below. Gamma Group, under Captain Victor Lang on the UES Vengeance, would strike the repair stations and manufacturing facilities. All ships, engage, the Admiral ordered. The Retribution's engines flared to full power. Around Ryan, his crew worked with practiced precision. Lieutenant Diaz armed the railgun batteries, massive weapons that could accelerate metal slugs to a fraction of light speed. Commander Jenkins monitored power distribution, making sure weapons and shields had everything they needed. Target the lead dreadnought, Ryan commanded. All railguns fire when ready. The ship shuddered as the railguns fired. Invisible projectiles crossed the distance in seconds. The Krellian dreadnought's shields flared as the slugs hit, then collapsed. 3 more railgun rounds punched straight through the armor. Explosions rippled across the enemy ship's hull. All across the battlefield, human ships opened fire. Railgun rounds tore through unprepared Krellian vessels. In the first 90 seconds, 12 enemy ships were destroyed or crippled. The surprise was total, but the Krellians were not defenseless. Alarms began blaring across their fleet. Shields snapped to full power. Weapons came online. The giant war machines began to turn toward the human attackers. Incoming fire, Lieutenant Price called out. Multiple plasma cannon shots. Evasive maneuvers. All power to forward shields. The Retribution twisted to the side, but one plasma bolt caught them on the port side. The ship shook violently. Damage reports started flooding in. Hull breach on Deck 7, Commander Jenkins reported. Sealing it now. Shield strength down to 70%. Ryan kept his focus on the tactical display. The Krellians were organizing now, forming defensive formations, but they were confused, not sure where the humans had come from or how they had arrived so quickly. Target their flagship, Ryan ordered. That big one in the center. If we can take it out, we'll disrupt their command structure. The flagship was a massive vessel, twice the size of the Retribution. It was called the Eternal Dominion, and it was supposed to be unbreakable. Ryan intended to prove otherwise. More human ships joined the attack on the flagship. The UES Courage and the UES Liberty came in from different angles, firing everything they had. The Krellian ship's shields began to flicker under the assault. Then disaster struck. A Krellian battlecruiser got a clean shot at the UES Valiant. The plasma bolt hit the human ship's reactor. There was a blinding flash of light, and when it faded, the Valiant was gone. 200 crew members just gone. "Keep firing," Ryan said, though his throat felt tight. He had known the captain of the Valiant. They had served together years ago. Another human ship, the UES Courage, took heavy damage and began to drift out of formation. The Krellians focused their fire on it, and within minutes it too was destroyed. But humanity was giving as good as it got. Lieutenant Diaz had found his rhythm, each railgun shot precisely targeted at weak points in enemy shields. The Krellians were learning that human weapons could punch through defenses they thought were impenetrable. "Captain," Commander Jenkins said urgently, "the slip-space weapon is charged and ready." Ryan looked at the tactical display. The slip-space rift weapon was their secret advantage, but it used enormous amounts of power. They could only fire it a few times before the reactors needed to recharge. "Target that battle cruiser, the one that killed the Valiant." Jenkins worked the controls. The weapon required precise calculations. If they got it wrong, the rift could appear anywhere or nowhere. After 30 seconds that felt like hours, Jenkins looked up. Firing solution locked. Fire. There was no visible beam or projectile. One moment the Krellian battlecruiser was there, firing its weapons and moving to engage another human ship. The next moment a tear in space appeared inside its hull. The gravitational forces were immense. The ship folded in on itself like paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. In 3 seconds it was gone, collapsed into a point of twisted metal and energy. The Krellian fleet hesitated. They had just seen one of their most powerful ships destroyed by a weapon they did not understand and could not defend against. That hesitation cost them. While the space battle raged, Lieutenant Colonel Murphy's special forces launched from assault shuttles hidden in the human fleet. Their target was the supply depot on Vega Prime's largest moon. The depot held fuel, ammunition, and spare parts for the entire Krellian fleet. Murphy's team of 40 Marines hit the depot hard and fast. They breached the hull, fought through the surprised Krellian guards, and planted nuclear charges at key locations. The guards fought back fiercely, but they were not ready for human special forces. "Charges set," Murphy reported over the radio. "Extraction in 90 seconds. His team ran back to their shuttles as Krellian reinforcements rushed toward the depot. They lifted off just as the charges detonated. The depot and everything in it went up in a series of massive explosions that could be seen from orbit. Back on the Retribution, Ryan saw the explosions light up the moon's surface. "Well done, Colonel. That's going to hurt their logistics for months." But the battle was far from over. More human ships were taking damage. The UES Freedom lost its engines and became a sitting target. The crew evacuated in pods before the ship was destroyed. The Krellians were adapting to human tactics now, using their superior numbers to overwhelm individual ships. "Captain," Lieutenant Price said urgently, "sensors are picking up new contacts. Multiple slip-space signatures." Ryan's heart sank. "How many?" "At least 60 ships. Krellian reinforcements." The tactical display updated, showing a second Krellian fleet arriving at the edge of the system. They had responded to the distress calls faster than expected. Now the humans were not facing 80 ships. They were facing over 140. "All ships, this is Admiral Patterson. We've accomplished our primary objective. The enemy fleet is damaged and their supply lines are crippled, but we cannot win a prolonged engagement against these numbers. All ships, prepare for emergency slip-space jump back to Rally Point Tango." Ryan did not like retreating, but the Admiral was right. They had hurt the enemy badly, but staying would mean destruction. "Lieutenant Price, calculate jump coordinates. Commander Jenkins, charge the slip-space drive." "One more shot," Lieutenant Diaz said. "The slip-space weapon is recharged. Permission to fire at the flagship." Ryan looked at the Eternal Dominion on his display. It was damaged but still fighting. Taking it out would be a major blow to Krellian command authority. "Do it. Then we jump." Ryan gave the order and the Retribution surged forward at full speed, heading straight for the enemy flagship. Krellian weapons fire lit up space around them. The shields dropped to 30%, then 20%. Alarms shrieked across the bridge. Range to target 2,000 meters and closing, Price called out. 1,500 meters. 1,000 meters. They were almost point blank now. Ryan could see the Eternal Dominion's weapons ports clearly through the viewport. He could see Krellian crew members moving behind windows in the hull. Fire, Ryan said. The slipspace weapon activated at nearly touching distance. The rift opened inside the Krellian flagship's main reactor. The results were catastrophic. The massive ship began to tear itself apart, pieces of hull flying in every direction. Secondary explosions rippled through its structure. Jump now, Ryan ordered. The stars stretched and blurred. Reality twisted. Then they were gone, leaving behind the wreckage of the Eternal Dominion and the shocked Krellian fleet. When normal space reasserted itself, the Retribution was back in the outer solar system at the rally point. Around them, other human ships were appearing one by one. Ryan counted them carefully. They had left with 47 ships. Only 39 returned, 8 ships lost. Over 2,000 crew members dead. But they had destroyed or crippled 30 Krellian vessels, including their flagship. They had obliterated vital supply depots. They had struck the enemy in their own territory and lived to tell about it. Admiral Patterson's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired, but there was fire in his eyes. Well done, all of you. Today, humanity showed the galaxy that we will not go quietly. But this is just the beginning. The Krellians will come for Earth now with everything they have. We need to be ready. Ryan leaned back in his chair. His crew was exhausted, his ship was damaged, and the real fight had not even started yet. But they had proven something important. The Krellian home system had never been attacked in over 3,000 years of recorded history. It was the heart of an empire, protected by orbital defense platforms, patrol fleets, and the unshakable belief that no enemy could reach this far into Krellian space. Ryan Foster was about to prove them wrong. All ships, weapons free. Target military installations only, no civilian structures. The 15 human ships spread out across the system. The Retribution led one group toward the orbital shipyards. Captain Martinez on the Defiant took another group to hit the military command station. Captain Lang on the Vengeance targeted the defense platforms. The Krellian defenders reacted quickly, but they were confused. How had human ships appeared so deep in their territory? Where had they come from? The questions cost them precious seconds, and those seconds were fatal. Railgun fire tore through the shipyards. Massive construction facilities that had been building Krellian warships for centuries began to break apart. The rift weapons opened holes in space that swallowed patrol ships whole. In 30 minutes, Ryan's group destroyed 4 major shipyards and crippled 2 more. Captain, receiving emergency transmissions from the planet, Lieutenant Price reported. They are scrambling their reserve fleet. Good, that is exactly what we want them to do. The more ships they keep here, the fewer they can send to Earth. But the cost was high. The UES Liberty took a direct hit from a defense platform and lost its engines. Captain Lang ordered the crew to evacuate, then deliberately crashed the drifting ship into a military depot. The explosion took out 3 Krellian supply centers. The strike force kept moving, hitting targets across the system. They avoided anything civilian, focusing only on military infrastructure, communication relays, weapons factories, training facilities. Each strike was calculated to cause maximum disruption, with minimal innocent casualties. After 4 hours of constant combat, Admiral Patterson's message came through from Earth. All strike force ships, mission accomplished. You have caused enough damage. The Krellians are already recalling ships from the Earthbound fleet. Time to come home. But getting home would not be easy. Krellian reinforcements were arriving from nearby systems. The human ships were low on ammunition and their shields were battered. Plot a jump back to the rally point, Ryan ordered. All ships form up for extraction. They had lost 4 ships so far. 11 remained. As they prepared to jump, Ryan took one last look at Krell Prime. Smoke rose from burning military installations. Wreckage orbited the planet like a new ring. The Krellian Empire would not forget this day. Back at Earth, Admiral Patterson watched the main Krellian fleet approach. They had started with 527 ships. But now, thanks to Ryan's strike, War Commander Cal Seth had been forced to send over 100 ships back to defend Krellian space. The fleet approaching Earth now numbered just over 400. Still terrible odds, but better than before. All ships battle stations, the Admiral ordered. This is it. Everything we have worked for comes down to this moment. Make every shot count. The human defensive fleet consisted of 63 ships. Some were military vessels, others were armed civilian transports crewed by volunteers. They formed a defensive line between the approaching Krellians and Earth. The battle began at extreme range. Missiles and energy weapons crossed the void. Human ships used hit-and-run tactics, striking and then retreating behind the defensive platforms that ringed Earth. The Krellians advanced in disciplined formations, their superior numbers allowing them to absorb losses that would have broken a smaller force. On Earth's surface, General Rodriguez watched the battle from a command bunker. Civilian evacuation was complete. Everyone who could not fight was deep underground. Everyone else had a weapon and orders to resist any landing attempts. Multiple enemy dropships detected, an officer reported. They are attempting to establish landing zones in North America and Asia. Send in the response teams. Do not let them gain a foothold. Krellian soldiers landed expecting quick victory. Instead, they found prepared defenses and fierce resistance. Lieutenant Colonel Murphy's special forces hit the landing zones hard, destroying transport ships before they could unload their full cargo. Human defenders fought with everything they had, knowing their families sheltered below. In space, the battle reached its peak. The UES Defiance, Captain Martinez's ship, rammed a Krellian cruiser after its weapons failed, buying time for 2 damaged human ships to retreat. The UES Guardian detonated its reactor next to a cluster of enemy ships, taking 5 of them down. War Commander Cal Seth watched from his command ship as the humans refused to break. He had expected them to scatter after the first assault. Instead, they fought harder. He had conquered 17 species in his career. None had resisted like this. Sir, another group of human ships just appeared behind our formation. It is the strike force from Krell Prime. Ryan's 11 battered ships had returned, jumping directly into the battle. They were low on ammunition and their shields were failing, but they attacked with desperate courage. The Krellian fleet now faced threats from 2 directions. For 72 hours, the battle raged. Space around Earth became a graveyard of broken ships and scattered debris. Human casualties mounted. The U.S. Retribution took hit after hit, sections of the hull torn open to space. Commander Jenkins worked miracles keeping the engines running. Dr. Palmer treated wounded crew members in a medical bay that had lost gravity. But humanity held. Every time the Krellians pushed forward, humans pushed back. Every landing attempt was repelled. Every assault was met with counter-assault. On the 3rd day, something broke in the Krellian fleet. War Commander Cal Seth received reports that the human strike force had destroyed his empire's primary shipyard. Without it, replacing losses would take years instead of months. He looked at the tactical display and saw that he had lost over 150 ships with more damaged. The humans had lost ships too, but they were fighting on their home ground with nothing left to lose. Cal Seth made a decision that shocked his officers. He ordered a retreat. The Krellian fleet withdrew, leaving Earth's space filled with wreckage but free. On the surface, humans emerged from shelters to see the sky clear of enemy ships. They had won. Barely bloodily, but they had won. The Galactic Assembly convened 3 days later. The chamber was quiet as Jake Morrison stood at the human podium. He did not ask for mercy. He did not apologize. Humanity will never accept imprisonment. We will never submit to being caged. Any species that attempts to deny us our freedom will face the same fate as the Krellians. We did not seek this war, but we will not lose it. Sauron of the Thalan Collective stood up. I propose a new resolution. Humanity is recognized as a sovereign galactic power with full rights and protections under assembly law. The quarantine order is rescinded. The vote was close. Many species still feared humanity. But others had seen what happened when you tried to force humans into submission. The resolution passed by 16 votes. Ryan Foster returned to Earth a hero, though he felt like anything but one. Too many friends had died. Too many ships lost. He stood in Arlington Cemetery and looked at the rows of new graves, thinking about the price of freedom. President Harper addressed the planet in a broadcast that reached every human settlement. We have paid a terrible price, but we have secured our future. The galaxy tried to judge us, to limit us, to cage us. We showed them that humanity cannot be contained. We will remember those we lost. We will honor their sacrifice, and we will never, never surrender our freedom. 6 months later, human ships moved freely through galactic space once more. Trade agreements were signed with species that had supported or stayed neutral. New colonies were established. The fleet was rebuilt with the new slipspace technology as standard equipment. Dr. Blake's inventions revolutionized human space travel. Kate Sullivan's intelligence network expanded, ensuring humanity would never again be caught by surprise. General Rodriguez trained the next generation of defenders. On the bridge of the newly commissioned UES Defiance, Ryan looked out at the stars. Lieutenant Price stood next to him, now promoted to commander and serving as his first officer. "What are you thinking, Captain?" she asked. "I am thinking about what we learned. The galaxy feared us because we were different, because we would not accept their rules. They tried to stop us with force. All they did was prove that we were right to refuse." Commander Price smiled slightly. "And now? Now we show them what humanity can really do. Not as conquerors, but as equals. We earned our place out here with blood and courage. Time to prove we deserve it." The Defiance's engines engaged, pushing the ship toward the stars. Behind it, dozens of other human ships followed, spreading across the galaxy. The age of human exploration had begun again, but this time no one would tell them where they could or could not go. The galaxy had voted to banish Earth. Humanity had refused to wait. They had struck first, fought harder, and won their freedom. Now the entire universe would have to accept what humanity had always known. Humans would never be caged. They would never stop reaching for the stars. And anyone who tried to stop them would learn the same lesson the Krellians had learned. Freedom is not given, it is taken. And once taken, humanity would defend it to the very last breath. The news spread through the Galactic Assembly like wildfire. The humans, the species that was supposed to submit peacefully, had launched a devastating surprise attack. The Krellian Imperium, the most powerful military force in known space, had been bloodied in their own territory. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the human embassy on the neutral diplomatic station and watched the emergency session on his screen. The chamber was in chaos. Aliens were shouting at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate action against Earth. Others looked worried or uncertain. The Krellian ambassador, a massive warrior named Kelvar, stood at the center podium. His armor was ceremonial, but the weapons on his belt were real. His voice shook with rage. "The humans have committed an act of unprovoked aggression. They destroyed the Eternal Dominion. They killed thousands of Krellian soldiers. We demand the full military mobilization of the Assembly. Earth must be crushed, its population reduced to a level where they can never threaten anyone again." Several alien species voiced agreement immediately. The Vrex Collective, the Halar Federation, and the Zephon Concordat all pledged ships to the cause. Jake watched the numbers add up on his tablet. If every species that supported the Krellians sent their fleets, Earth would face over 700 warships. But not everyone was on board. A slender alien with silver skin stood up. Jake recognized her as Soran, representative of the Thalan Collective. The Thalans were known for their strategic thinking and careful analysis. "I would ask the Assembly to consider what we have done," Soran said calmly. "We voted to imprison an entire species based on fear of what they might become. We did not wait for them to commit any crime. We simply decided they were too dangerous to be free. Should we be surprised that they fought back?" "They murdered our people," Kelvar roared. "After you prepared to cage theirs," Soran replied. "The Thalan Collective abstained from the original vote because we believed it was unjust. Now we see that backing a predator into a corner is foolish. The humans have shown they will not submit. The question is, do we continue this path that will cost countless lives on both sides, or do we reconsider our position?" The debate raged for hours. Jake watched carefully, noting which species seemed to support the Thalan's position. When the session finally ended, his communicator buzzed. A coded message from Soran. She wanted to meet in secret. 3 hours later, Jake stood in a private room with the Thalan diplomat. She poured him a drink of something blue and sweet. "Your people have made quite an impression," she said. "The galaxy is frightened of you now. That could work in your favor or against you." "We did not want this war," Jake said. "But we will not let anyone cage us, I know. That is why I am here. 12 species abstained or voted against the quarantine. Some of us believe you deserve the same rights as any other spacefaring civilization. But we lack the military power to oppose the Krellian Imperium alone. What are you proposing? A coalition? If the humans can show they are willing to fight for peace, not conquest, others might join you. But you need to be careful. One wrong move and you give the Warhawks exactly what they need to unite the entire galaxy against you. Jake reported the conversation to President Harper immediately. The president called another emergency meeting in the underground command center. Kate Sullivan had news of her own. The Krellian response is bigger than we expected. War Commander Kalseth has been given full authority to assemble a war fleet. Current estimates put it at over 500 ships. They will reach Earth in approximately 3 weeks. General Rodriguez studied the tactical projections. Even with our defensive preparations, we cannot hold against those numbers. Not in a straight fight. Admiral Patterson nodded grimly. We need another option. Dr. Blake, can your slipspace technology help us? Dr. Blake looked exhausted. He had been working non-stop since the fleet returned. I have an idea, but it is extremely dangerous. Instead of waiting for them to come to us, we could take the fight to Krellian home territory. A small strike force could jump directly to their core systems and target military installations. We would not be trying to conquer anything, just forcing them to recall ships to defend their own worlds. A suicide mission, General Rodriguez said quietly. Probably, Blake admitted, but it would buy Earth time and might convince the Krellians that this war will cost them more than they are willing to pay. President Harper was quiet for a long moment. Captain Foster, would you be willing to lead such a mission? Ryan had been sitting silently in the corner. Now he stood up. I would, sir, but I will only take volunteers. No one should be ordered on a one-way trip. How many ships would you need? 15 would be optimal. Small enough to move fast, large enough to do real damage. The president nodded slowly. Make it happen. Admiral Patterson, I want every available ship ready to defend Earth. General Rodriguez, fortify every major city and prepare evacuation protocols for civilians. If the Krellians break through, they will find resistance at every level. Over the next 2 weeks, Earth prepared for total war. Factories ran 24 hours a day building weapons. Civilian transports were fitted with missile pods. Every person capable of fighting received basic military training. Evacuation shelters were dug deep underground in case of orbital bombardment. Kate Sullivan's agents worked overtime. They spread misinformation about Earth's defenses, making the Krellian fleet think humans had more ships than they really did. They also began quiet diplomatic contacts with species that seemed uncertain about the war. Ryan assembled his strike force. 15 ships, including the Retribution. The other captains were all volunteers who understood they probably would not come home. They spent their last days on Earth saying goodbye to families and writing letters. Lieutenant Megan Price found Ryan standing alone in the observation deck, looking at Earth below. She stood next to him in silence for a while. My parents want me to resign, she said finally. They say this mission is suicide and I'm throwing my life away. They might be right. But if we do nothing, the Krellians will come here and destroy everything anyway. At least this way we have a chance to protect Earth. Ryan nodded. That is exactly why I am going. Not because I want to die, but because it is the best chance to save everyone down there. The day before the strike force was scheduled to leave, something unexpected happened. 3 alien ships appeared at the edge of the solar system. They were not Krellian. Kate Sullivan's analysis identified them as Thalian vessels. Sauron herself came aboard the diplomatic station. She met with President Harper via secure video link. The Thalian Collective has made a decision, she said. We will not fight for humanity in your war, but we will also not fight against you. We are declaring neutrality, and we are offering to provide medical supplies and limited intelligence sharing. It is not much, but it is what we can do without bringing the full weight of the Krellian fleet down on our worlds. Why risk even that much? The president asked. Because some principles are worth risking for. You are fighting for the right to exist as free beings. That is a cause we can respect, even if we cannot fully support. After Sauron left, Kate Sullivan reported that 2 other species had also declared neutrality. It was not the massive alliance they had hoped for, but it was something. The galaxy was not entirely united against them. The Krellian war fleet was now 10 days from Earth. Long-range sensors showed it was even larger than predicted. 527 ships, led by War Commander Kalseth himself aboard his personal dreadnought. Ryan's strike force launched quietly, using a route that took them far from normal shipping lanes. Their destination was Krell Prime, the Krellian homeworld over 200 light-years away. With conventional drives, it would take weeks. With slipspace technology, they would be there in hours. As the Retribution prepared to jump, Ryan thought about everything at stake. Earth, his crew, the future of humanity. It was almost too much to bear. But then he remembered something his grandfather had told him once. Sometimes the only way forward is straight through the fire. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Price said. Then let's show them that Earth will not go quietly, Ryan said. All ships jump. The stars blurred and twisted. When they reformed, a red sun hung in space before them. Below it was Krell Prime, the heart of the enemy empire. Around the planet orbited defensive platforms and patrol ships. Let's get to work, Ryan said quietly. The second battle for humanity's survival was about to begin, this time in the enemy's own home.